Here now is Miranda Devine, New York Post columnist, for details on what we might hear. I love the way you start a piece in the New York Post saying that there's always a smile on Christopher Wray's. It's kind of a smirky smile. You say that's going to disappear pretty quickly. What is the first question that he's going to be hearing from Republicans?
Look, I know that the Republicans are hot to trot when it comes to accountability of the FBI, and particularly when it comes to the Hunter Biden matter. Chuck Grassley's been hearing from whistleblowers, FBI whistleblowers, who've come forward courageously now to say that when in October 2020, which was when the New York Post first ran our stories from the laptop showing that Joe Biden was involved in Hunter Biden's overseas business dealings, that the FBI or elements within the FBI suppressed that information, that derogatory information, and they dismissed it as Russian disinformation. And October of 2020, of course, was also when another of Hunter Biden's business partners, Tony Bobulinski, came forward publicly, said Joe Biden was involved, said he'd met him twice, said he was the big guy who was getting 10% of a Chinese deal. He had hours of interviews with the FBI, and he handed over all his documents, his emails, his devices to the FBI, and yet nothing seems to have come of that again. Is that because these FBI agents suppressed it deliberately to interfere in the election?
And of course, something else happened in October 2020, right before the election. That's when the New York Post was censored by all the social media accounts and Twitter and so forth. And the FBI at that moment had not only had the laptop, but they had the information from Bobulinski, and they could have said publicly that, no, it is a true story. They went along with the idea instead of vindicating your reporting. They went along with the mainstream media's idea. So it's like there was a conspiracy between the FBI and the mainstream media to silence, to kill this story.
Exactly. And remember also, in October of 2020 came that letter from the 51 former high-level intelligence officials like John Brennan, former director of the CIA, James Clapper, Michael Hayden, Leon Panetta, people who should have known better, pretending that the laptop and our reporting, therefore, was somehow Russian disinformation. So that was used by Joe Biden very skillfully in the debate against Donald Trump, that final debate, to take the heat off him. That was what the letter was intended to do. It seems that similarly within the FBI there were agents, one analyst are named by Chuck Grassley as having interfered in the election by suppressing that information.
Now, what happened to Christopher Wray? People thought he was going to, the beginning when he came in as director, they thought he was going to depoliticize it. It seems like he went right along. He was just subsumed by the political correctness of the FBI in trying to do everything they can to overturn the Trump administration.
Well, look, if the rot in the FBI is as deep as it seems to be, because remember the Russian collusion hoax, some of the same players now also tried to suppress the Hunter Biden material.
Yes.
And the FBI has a litany, a history of lack of accountability for terrible errors in which people have been killed. I mean, the Waco, Ruby Ridge, 9/11, Oklahoma City bombing, you name it. And never does anybody really get brought to account. The agency doesn't seem to learn and reform. And so I think there's a situation where you have this, I guess, pretty boy FBI director at the top of it, and maybe he doesn't have a clue what's going on, or maybe it's just not worth his while to rock the boat. He just sits there, he subjects himself to these occasional congressional hearings, and he just smiles and says, I can't talk about ongoing investigations, or whatever other smooth talk they use.
Well, now
but I
we
think
have,
when the Republicans,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but now we do have the whistleblowers. Hopefully they will come out and give us information, particularly, we only have 40 seconds on this, but particularly on the big guy. Bobulinski referenced in his emails the fact that the big guy was to get 10%, and that might have been the current president of the United States, Joe Biden. Are we going to get to the bottom of who the big guy was?
Look, I don't No, but we do know that at the Delaware grand jury investigation into Hunter Biden, which has been going on for 4 years, dragging on and on, but we do know that at least one witness was asked the identity of the big guy, which means that that investigation is at least following a trail that may lead to the White House.
Yeah, I think you'd need subpoena power of Congress, and of course that comes with a majority, and that might happen after the elections in November. So hopefully at some point we'll get to the end of that, because that's a question that everybody deserves to have answered, particularly before 2024.
Yeah.
Miranda Devine, fantastic reporting as always. Thank you so much for being here and sharing it with us. Appreciate it. We'll be right back. Stay with us.